Coyotes. No matter where you live in southern Nevada, you've probably spotted one near your neighborhood. We wanted to know, are there more of them out now? Are they a threat to you, your kids? How about your pets?
And what about the now famous dog that lived with coyotes for months near the Inspirada neighborhood in Henderson? Tonight, Fox 5's Kim Passoff is getting answers in a special report.
He's so close.
A coyote at Lake Mead. Jatoya Askew took this video while inside her car, her dog growling. But the coyote doesn't seem to care. It stops and stares before going on with his day. This curious coyote at Lake Las Vegas seemingly poses on a grassy hill, paying no mind to the human filming it.
They start to associate humans with food and resources, which makes them more bold and more willing to approach humans.
This one carries its dinner in its mouth as it runs down Aliante Parkway.
Fresh chicken.
This one at the corner of Warm Springs and Torrey Pines feasts on his catch, even with headlights shining right on it.
There's one of our coyote friends.
From the outskirts of the valley to the suburbs, even the heart of the city, like the UNLV campus.
It's leaving though, it's leaving, y'all.
Or the Las Vegas Country Club golf course with a high rise in the distance. Coyotes can be spotted almost anywhere.
Coyotes have been in the suburban and even in relatively urban areas as long as they've existed.
UNLV life sciences professor Sean Nicewinter researches mammals, especially carnivores, and has been monitoring coyotes locally for years. He says the Vegas Valley has always been home to a large, healthy coyote population. What is new? Social media and the ability to share sightings.
All over social media, people posting these pictures of coyotes.
Recently, videos of this white dog that became known as Ghost, spotted living among coyotes, went viral.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's crazy. It is unusual to see dogs and coyotes interacting like that, but it's not completely unheard of. With a dog that size, maybe it's less likely that it's going to be predatory behavior. It's still rather unusual to see them kind of adopted into the pack like that.
Professor Nicewinter says this storybook-like tale is a rare exception. This is much more common. A coyote looking to get into a backyard. Alicia Went tells Fox 5 it was watching her dog.
Definitely lots of reports of coyotes attacking smaller dogs and cats.
This is video from Phoenix, coyotes lounging on top of cars. Like their neighbors to the north in Nevada, they have also adopted a suburban lifestyle because of the abundance of food.
The absolute worst thing you can do with coyotes, or any wildlife really, is give them food, give them water, give them resources. They get habituated really quick. They learn where food is, just like your pet dog.
Professor Nicewinter says you should never feed them because they can turn on you.
Almost all the cases of attacks on adults have been when adults were trying to feed coyotes.
While any coyote attack is rare, they are more common on what they see as smaller prey.
In general, they're not something that we should be concerned about unless we have small pets, small children, in which case a little supervision is usually sufficient.
Coyotes are not a protected species in Nevada and are even hunted for sport, some calling them a nuisance animal. But Professor Nicewinter says it is important to remember they were here first.
Even though we built this big city, there's great wildlife that's still here we can still enjoy.
Kim Passoff, Fox 5 News, local, Las Vegas.
The professor adds, though, he doesn't believe coyote numbers have changed significantly. Since it's still winter and resources might be harder to find, younger coyotes might be more willing to wander into new areas where they haven't been spotted before.